This is On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. A weekly recap of your Philadelphia Flyers from blue line to blue line. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's, tonight's show is brought to you by Han & Stone Spa, Pat Dion Beverages, The Capitol Grill, Chickies and Pete's, Payroll Service Solutions, and Independence Blue Cross. We now go live to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Now, here are your hosts, former Flyer Brad Marsh and Paul Jolovitz.
And thank you very much, Matt Miro, and welcome to On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. We're at one of my favorite Chickies and Pete's here in Drexel Hill, where the food is great, the TVs are fired up for something else that's coming on a little later tonight. You might know about that. I'm Paul Jolovitz. Brad Marsh is my co-host. How are you, buddy? Big night in Philly sports.
Yeah, the Flyers are in Toronto.
Flyers in Toronto, Sixers at home, and a little baseball game a little later on. Then the Eagles tomorrow. We'll talk about that and much more with our guest who won a couple of things called the Stanley Cup in the 70s with the Broad Street Bullies. I've tried to get him for a couple of years on this show. He's been in his winter home in California. He was nice enough to say he could come tonight. Joe Watson was nice enough to switch his dates. So we are blessed with the appearance of Flyers second-line center on the Broad Street Bullies teams, Mr. Orest Kindrachuk. Welcome, buddy. How are you?
Oh, it's great to be here, especially the way things are going on in Philly right now.
Not bad, huh? I guess I wanted to start with that with you, Orest. I mean, obviously, that's a 3,000-pound elephant in the room. I mean, the Eagles are playing tomorrow night. They're undefeated. The Union are in the MLS title game Sunday. We've become Title Time USA. Obviously, you got to win something, but we're in them. What was it like when you look back 47, 48 years and you were here and obviously winning those two Stanley Cups? Was there a mood of the city like this? Was there an expectant throng? Was it crazy loud at the Spectrum? Contrast the two times if you could.
Well, I think where I really got some chills, I went to the final game when they won the National League, and just standing in the suite there looking down, and it just kind of reminded me of looking around the Spectrum and hearing the roof come off and the chills. And I think the big thing is that it's the players that have responded to the Delaware Valley. They got married to the Delaware Valley now, and I felt we were married to the Delaware Valley too, because they've let not only the fans, but even the people working there and everything, they've let them into their lives. And when you let them into your own life, you're part of it. You're family now too. So I think that's the way we feel. And the crazy thing is, they win this World Series that, as I feel, it's 49 years later, and the feeling is still there. It really is. It's like it happened 10 years ago. So these players right now, that if they win this, they can come back to Philly anytime, and if they don't stay here.
When did they walk together forever, obviously?
It is, and it's not only just the teammates that walk together forever, it's the whole area that will walk together forever, because the people are part of it.
It's obviously huge for the city. Our other co-host, one of the other co-hosts, Bernie Perrant, you might know who he is. He threw out the first pitch last night along with Brandon Graham of the Eagles, Dr. J of the Sixers, Mike Schmidt of the Phillies, threw it to Cole Hamels and three other Phillies, Ryan Howard and Jason Worth and Jimmy Rollins. Unbelievable night. Brad, you never won a Stanley Cup, but you were with the Flyers when people tell me, I was at the game, but I wasn't at the 74-75. I'm from D.C. But they said when J.J. Daniels scored in Game 6 of the 87 Stanley Cup Finals, they literally thought they were going deaf and the roof was being blown off the building. Is that the loudest you ever heard in an NHL arena, or is there something else I'm missing?
Well, definitely it was the loudest. It was just, as Orest was saying, just sitting on the bench and taking it all in. It was, and the thing is, you talk about the moment when, Orest, you would have jumped the boards and celebrated with your teammates, but people don't realize it is, especially in the Philly, with the Philly crowd back then, it starts in warm-up. Like with the Flyers fans, like it was loud from warm-up to the drop of the puck to the final horn, and it just wasn't the moment. And to sit on the bench and just embrace the excitement and the atmosphere that's in the building, it's incredible. And even last night watching the Phillies game, like they're doing that thing. They're wearing that noise thing in their baseball caps, so they can hear the communications and all that. They had to raise it to some unknown, decibel, I guess is the right word, because the players on the field they can't even communicate properly, and so it was really cool watching the start of the game, and once again the Philadelphia fans, they just didn't cheer when the home run was hit. They cheered as soon as they walked in the ballpark. For heaven's sakes, that's unheard of in pro sports.
The athletes, obviously the athletes are human too, and they can hear or not hear depending on the crowd. And a home crowd like that is going to make it impossible for the visiting team, but it can impact the home team too. I mean, if you can't hear, you can't hear. But I'm assuming you and Brad will both trade anything to have that. And then if it's difficult hearing once in a while, that's cool, but it's killing the other team, right?
Sure it is, and they they got. I don't think they really knew what they were going to expect coming into
Great
Philly,
point.
and I just think it's awesome. And then, when it was they were hitting those home runs last night, and I was watching the body language of the Houston players, and I don't know. I'm assuming Altuve is maybe their leader.
Yep.
But he was sitting there subdued. I think his body language was awful for a leader. I think he should have stepped up and said, "Come on, guys, maybe the game's over, but let's rally here. Let's get it going." And there was none of that in their dugout.
It looked like the phrase "Houston, you have a problem" was encompassing them, Brad.
Yeah, well, a lot of times, though, like in hockey, or when the game's not going your way, there's a rallying cry in the dressing room between the second and third periods, the intermission there, and you say, "Okay, hey guys, we probably aren't going to come back and win the game. Let's win the third period." So that's what you were kind of saying, that the leader of the Houston, okay, this game's over, but let's send them a message so they'll remember us the next game. Just don't go out with a whimper. And that's an old saying in hockey, let's win this last period. Let's show them what we're all about. And it pays off. When you put in a good last 30 minutes when the game's out of reach, that team remembers it.
Well, I think the big thing is if we were a little flat, we'd send out the Hound. And when the Hound
and you had Clarkie as your leader.
Well, when the Hound was out in the ice, you had to look out for him too. Just because he was your teammate didn't mean he wasn't going to hit you too.
Well, it's the same as Dave Brown. Things weren't going your way or whatever. You send Dave Brown out on the ice, and quite often the tough guys would turn the tide of the game.
Well, it would certainly send a message for the next time we meet him.
Well, it sent a lot of messages. The Broad Street Bullies sent. You were the center, one of the centers on that team. You centered a couple guys who were pretty good hockey players, also pretty decent tough guys, in Dave Schultz and Don Selesky. I assume you had a lot of room at center, given the fact of who your line mates were. What was it like back in those days with the Broad Street Bullies when you intimidated the rest of the league?
Well, I think we weren't the only team. There were other teams. Boston was tough.
Atlanta Flames were tough.
Montreal was tough. St. Louis was tough. There was a lot of teams. I think the big difference was we just felt we never quit. There wasn't 1 second on that ice where a guy wasn't giving it all, and I think that was a difference in that regard. But I think when we went out on the ice, we might have taken it to a little higher level. But that puck was ours, and nobody was going to take it from us. And if you had it, we were going to take it from you.
Marcy, you think you would have fit? I think you would have fit very well with the Broad Street Bullies. You had that kind of game. You would fit well in any area. You had a wonderful career as it was. But did you ever wish you had had a chance to play with the Broad Street Bullies?
Well, I think there was a lot of, because I was still playing junior hockey back in London when the Broad Street Bullies were really making a name for themselves, and so the whole hockey world took notice of what they were doing. And I think, back to the Orest, you played road hockey many times, and up in Canada when you play road hockey, you were always somebody that was in the NHL. I was a Toronto Marsh family. We were Toronto Maple Leaf fans, so you were always in my case, being a defenseman, Tim Horton, Bobby Bond, and all that. But when the Broad Street Bully came along, when you're playing that game of road hockey, the game of road hockey all of a sudden got a little tougher. I'm Dave Schultz, and and so on and so on. And so, every kid that played hockey at some point in time likened themselves to being on the Broad Street Bullies, being a Philadelphia Flyer, and for how many years? And I'm not sure what the stat is now, because obviously we're not the team that we have been in past years or past decades, but the Flyers were the #1 draw on the road.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
#1, and that was for year after year after year because people wanted to come see the orange and black play. Not just because of the toughness that the Broad Street Bullies brought into the game, but so many years we had some good hockey teams, even when the fighting was gone. Like, look at the team in the 80s that I played on, the teams in the 90s and the 2010. They came from behind and beat the Boston Bruins. So many fans, hockey fans, wanted to see the orange and black. We still have one of the best crests in the league.
Well, I think the big thing was, and I didn't know this stat, it was for 5 years in a row, we sold out in every building on the road.
Every game, every building.
For 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing considering, some of the cities that we played in, like Kansas City, that was sold out. Oakland sold out. L.A. sold out because they didn't draw much then.
Places that never sold out.
Atlanta sold out. So that was, I can remember pulling into Vancouver, being from Western Canada, I would go get a paper just to kind of catch up and the headline said, "Beware, women and children lock windows and doors. Flyers are in town."
Well,
so I thought that was pretty comical.
You had that reputation. You talk about being from Western Canada. We're going to bookend the past and the past and the further past of your life, Orest. You were born in Alberta. You live here now. You're one of the examples of Fred Ciro, win today and walk together forever. You've walked in the Delaware Valley for a long time now. You're a resident here. You're an American citizen. But you started in Western Canada as a son of immigrants from the Ukraine. Obviously, unless you have a serious problem with your head, you know what's going on in the Ukraine now. If I could, I know it's a sensitive topic, your Ukrainian heritage. You were talking to me about it before the show. Talk about how the last few months have changed your life a little bit. What do you feel toward the Ukraine, and what do you feel toward Philadelphia now as your home?
Well, I think in Ukraine, I am in conversation via email with an individual, Vladimir Mula, who did a documentary. He came over here in 2018, and he wanted to find as many Ukrainians as he could that have their name on the Stanley Cup. And he did the documentary. He released it in April of 21, I believe, and it's out in Prime or Apple, and it's $15 to buy, and the proceeds are going to the parts of the Ukraine. But it's maddening for us. I just emailed him Sunday. He says we're very optimistic. We're not giving up. We've lost some power here and there, but and another thing it's showing me is, and I think maybe that's where we kind of got it, the resiliency and the toughness that these people have. They're not giving up. They're not going anywhere.
People think Broad Street Bullies were resilient and tough, and they were. And Marcia, your teams were. This is another level. This is real life. These are people whose lives are on the line every second. And to the rest of the world watching the Ukraine, there's not even words for it for me. It's incredible.
There really isn't, and I stay in touch with my younger brother. He's been there. I have not been there, and he still stays in touch. My ancestry is from the western part of Ukraine, and they showed me the area and everything. But I go back to Saskatoon, where I really grew up there. I moved there when I was 5, so... But the Ukrainian heritage there is phenomenal, and I was there in August, and the support and everything that they're giving back to the Ukraine, and not only Ukrainian people, but Canada itself.
Brad, did you know that, I had no idea, I mean, I know he was from Eastern Europe somewhere, but in that documentary, some guy named Wayne Gretzky kind of led the documentary, is of Ukrainian heritage. Something like this is made, you never have any idea. Did you play with any guys whose families have been affected by that? Todd Fedorik, I know, is Ukrainian. Anybody else you can think of?
No, not off the top of my head. I've read articles on the number of players that have not necessarily from there, but have the bloodlines of their parents came to Canada or immigrated to Canada. And but it's what's going on. It's just mind-boggling. It's even hard to wrap your head around it that kind of stuff goes on.
Well, the thing that when is the world going to step in? He's affecting not only Ukraine, but Putin. Yeah. He's affecting everybody. And just a side note, there are 57 Ukrainians that have their name on the cup.
It's awesome. It really is. And we'll continue to pay homage to the Ukraine. We'll talk to Orest about the current Flyers, look back at the Broad Street Bullies. talk with myself and Brad and Orest Kindrachuk about all things Flyers. Time to give out our Independence Blue Cross Live Fearless Player of the Week. Each week we award a Flyer with this honor. This week, who else could it be but Carter Hart? Big saves, almost 50 saves in a win last week. Played his you-know-what off last night. They were unable to score, lost 1-0 in overtime for the Rangers. Would have been worse without Carter Hart. He's our Independence Blue Cross Player of the Week. Remember to choose Independence Blue Cross today and begin to live fearless. We're here with the fearless Ukrainian, Orest Kindrachuk and Brad Marsh at Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill with the Independence Blue Cross on the ice. We'll come back and lead into the show and lead into the World Series, rather, with hockey right after this.
Fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and former Flyer Brad Marsh.
Welcome to the Independence Blue Cross On the Ice. From here to Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill, I'm sitting here with our guest, Orest Kindrachuk, wearing a Flyers alumni hat and a Flyers alumni sweater. My co-host, Brad Marsh, who, by the way, is the head of the Flyers alumni. I like cheese and have several other things that make me unique, but not quite the Flyers alumni part. Before we get to the alumni, guys, Orest, we like to quiz people on their own careers a little bit. How many goals did you score in the NHL? You have any idea?
No.
Take a guess.
Oh, boy. I don't know. 120 maybe?
Well, missed by 2. Not bad. 118.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty solid guess. And Brad Orest Kindrachuk, an absolute contributor to the Broad Street Bullies, number 26 in Flyer fans' hearts, and now a member of the Flyers alumni. He's wearing the gear proudly. You're the head of the alumni. How's that going right now?
Very well. It's going very well. We got as I say all the time, we got a very active and proactive alumni. We do a lot of good things, and we have a lot of events, and the guys come back for the events, and we raise money, and that allows us to do all the good things in the city.
It is tremendous. I mean, the Flyers really have all Philadelphia teams a core. What is it about this city? I mean, I'm from D.C. I'm not from Philadelphia. Obviously, Brad, you're not. Orest, you're not. This city has such a sports culture. I think our identity, my guess is that Washington, where I grew up, our identity as a Washingtonian is politics. We're the political capital of the world. New York is the financial capital of the world. Philadelphia's right in between. It's an unbelievable city. It's not a political capital. It's not a financial capital. What's our identity? I think sports ties the city together, a city of neighborhoods, and sports kind of is the common bond. Do you see that at all, Orest?
Oh, definitely. And I have conversation years ago with some of the younger players, and I said, it's not the winning and losing. It's how you lose and how hard you work and how you treat the public, how you treat the fans. Be part of it. Be part of all that. It's a lot more fun having fun with the people than have them throwing stuff at you, So I think all you got to do is work your butt off in Philadelphia, and it's not the wins, it's how you lose.
Interesting comment by Orest, Brad, because we got a coach here now, John Tortorella. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I don't know whether the Flyers can sustain this start or not. That's something to talk about a little later on. Lost last night to the Rangers, obviously, but near the top of the division. Tortorella has imbued an accountability, a work ethic that's second to none, really, in the NHL now. And how much a part of the city of Philadelphia is that? I always thought Tortorella was a perfect fit here. Not sure he'll win a cup or not. Obviously, with this team, talent has a big part of it. But how much is that what Orest said, the city and the match between the accountability and the city's accountability?
Well, with regards to John, I think he's embraced the Flyers, the Flyers fans, the Flyers organization, and he said it time and time again. And I think the Flyers fans loved his training camp. Like, he took the pucks off the ice. Okay, boys, you're going to work. You're not doing the drills right, you're going to work. That's what the Flyers, back to what Orest said, that's what the Flyers fans want to see. They want to see hard work. And they have not seen that the last couple of years. And so the Flyers, the players have bought into John's system. The fans love John's system. You go back to the home opener. Who got the biggest cheer?
He did.
John Tortorelli.
Yep.
It wasn't deafening, but it was way louder than any of the players. And so, as Orest said, the Flyers fans love their sports. The sports fans in Philadelphia love their sports. The Flyers fans in particular love the hard work, love the grit. And that's what they were born and raised on, watching all the early 60s teams and then the Broad Street Bullies. They love it. And they might not be as knowledgeable as the diehard Canadian hockey fan, but they know hard work. And there's a number of games where I don't think you had to wash their underwear after the game because they did not work last year.
Well, this year, I mean, you're used to leaders. You're used to Bobby Clark, who was the captain of your team's Orest. Brad, you were with Dave Poole and a couple others with the Flyers. The captain, is very important here. I'm sitting next to two people who played with many NHL teams. Only one, however, was the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mr. Orest Kindrachuk. We look at Scott Lawton. Nobody wears the C yet. Scott Lawton wears the A. He's in the discussions with the officials. I think he's a very representative guy to be a captain of an NHL team. We'll see about that down the road. But a lot of people don't think the captain is very important. A lot of people think it's absolutely vital and everything in between. When you wore that C, what was your role in addition to being a player? What was your role as the captain, did you think?
Well, I think, when you're growing up and if you've never been a captain or anything as you're growing up, and just to throw the C on somebody that's never been a captain, I don't think totally understands it. So growing up, and same with Clarkie. I mean, we were captains all the way through, right till we got, to the pros.
You were always a captain in juniors?
Captain of junior, captain of the midget team, captain of the provincial team, and all that. And I think that really is a training. But if you've never been a captain or I think it's very difficult for you just to say, okay, I'm going to be a captain. There's some involvement there, and I always looked at it in Pittsburgh, and I kind of felt honored in Pittsburgh because I got traded there, and we were only there. Ross Lonsbury, myself, and Tommy Bladen got traded there, and we had training camp for maybe two and a half weeks, and I get called into the office, and they asked me what's going on. They said, well, we had a vote. The players had a vote. And I said, well, I didn't vote. And I said, you're right, because you are now our captain. So I thought that was really an honor to be picked by players that I just kind of met.
Well, I could ask you this, but I'm going to ask Brad that instead. What does it say about a man who walks into a situation, I don't care what it is, and after 2 weeks, not only has the respect of his team, but the respect of his team over and above anybody else? What does that say about Orest as a human being, do you think?
That's a tough question.
He must have bought a lot of beer in training camp.
Bribery, huh?
No, the thing is the players know, and I can't remember what the Pittsburgh Penguins' record was at the time, but I don't think they weren't as good as they were now under Sidney Crosby. And so the thing is the players in the dressing room, they want to win. They, especially in training camp, everything's new. They think they have a good chance to be better. And but they want to win, and they want to be able to follow somebody. And we've sat in dressing rooms over the years, Orest. When you look around the room, there's really not a lot of people to follow. And what I mean by that is it just doesn't take one person to wear the C. You have to have a lot of guys ready to buy in. And I think
you wore the A, right?
Here in Philly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was captain in Calgary.
Cool.
But same as what Orest said, I was captain in junior, captain in junior B, and so on and so on. But I think what they saw in Orest was somebody that walked into the dressing room at training camp. And I don't know so much about demanded respect, but just in his everyday work habits, his everyday attitude, he got that respect. And I think the players in Pittsburgh at that time were looking for somebody to lead the ship, if you will.
Well, I think the big thing there, we opened up the season like 0-5, and but we were playing. We ended up being the 8th best team in the league, and ended up beating Buffalo, the French Connection. Then we lost to Boston in the next series. But there was a game we were playing against Boston at home, and they were kind of picking on and all that. And I thought, well, we got to stop this. And I made a really, really, really poor decision. I got in a fight with Terry O'Reilly.
That probably would be a poor
That
decision.
was a bad decision.
But did it pick up your team? The
Well,
whatever you got?
it was early in the season.
His team had to pick him up.
Yeah.
Probably be a stretcher had to pick you up. Yeah.
Well, it was either him or Stan Jonathan. It was tough, but it was early in the game, and it opens up, especially the younger players sitting on the bench, that they maybe haven't experienced this yet. So it opened up their eyes, and we really turned it around there.
All right, well, someone like me who loves hockey, obviously never played it at this level, we were watching a game today where that doesn't happen. You can be 0-5, you can be losing the game 4-0, 5-0. Somebody can go out and get in a fight, but the culture is not that what it used to be. How has that changed the game, Brad? How is the guy going out and taking one for the team, literally, in Orest's case, that not being the case anymore? How has that changed the flow of a game? If it has, I don't want to assume anything.
Well, what Orest did was very commonplace back when we played. Like, I remember, Dave Brown doing it, but it could have been any one player on the team because everybody could look after themselves back in those days. And nowadays, the toughness isn't there like it was back then. Each team has one guy, maybe two guys that will drop the gloves and fight, but they're going to fight the other team's tough guy. And so, it gets the crowd up, which then may get the team up because the crowd is now all of a sudden into it. But I don't think it rallies the troops like Orest getting beat up by Terry O'Reilly did. I assume you lost.
Yeah, I did.
Didn't get that one punch in?
But that makes the players sitting on the bench that much more accountable their next shift or the next game. And that doesn't seem to happen now. I don't know if I completely answered your question, but
got the point across. Sure.
But the thing is, toughness is different. Nowadays, it almost seems the blocking shots. I was a shot
sure
blocker.
One of the greatest ever.
But now everybody blocks a shot, and now sometimes, a lot of times, when the guy slides across and blocks the point shot, that almost seems to rally the troops. You see the team up banging their sticks on the bench. And
well, you look at things that John Tortorella demands. In my opinion, he demands shot blocking more than anything else. If a guy's winding up in front of you, you better get down. And that's John Tortorella's team. We're going to talk about it a lot more with Brad Marsh and Orest Kindrachuk. Take a quick break now, but it's time for our Smart Stat of the Week, brought to you by Payroll Service Solutions. Call them today at 1-866-PAY-EASY. That's 1-866-PAY-EASY. Here's a smart stat that's not normal, but it caught me the right way when I read it last night. Flyers played the Rangers last night at Madison Square Garden. Their only appearance at Madison Square Garden this year, which is strange because the NHL has gone to a more balanced schedule. I was shocked by that. They played twice here later in the season, but Flyers' only appearance at Madison Square Garden last night. They weren't able to get it done. They're back in Toronto tonight. They played 2 back-to-backs, lost both of them. Have a shot again tonight. That was your Flyers Smart Stat of the Week. Once again, brought to you by Payroll Service Solutions. Call them today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for the smart choice in payroll services. Payroll Service Solutions, catering to small and medium-sized business to handle all of your payroll needs. Call them once again at 1-866-PAY-EASY. If you were wondering what Flyer played his 800th game last night, if you couldn't sleep, we're going to answer it when we come back on the Independence Blue Cross on the Ice from here at Chickens and Peace in beautiful Drexel Hill right after this.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's, and we know Saturdays in the fall are special. Why? College football. And we have you covered with food and drink specials and the best in-game experience to watch your team or the college football game of the week. Come watch Penn State, Temple, Villanova, Notre Dame, Texas, Michigan, Georgia, and more. College football Saturdays are special at Chickies and Pete's.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
If you are looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
Payroll Service Solutions was established in 2001 to cater to the payroll needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Payroll Service Solutions offers unparalleled customer service while they deliver a complete and accurate payroll. When calling Payroll Service Solutions, you will never be put into a voicemail or go through a series of prompts to get to a person. All customer service representatives are extensively trained to handle all of your payroll needs, therefore saving you time. They value each and every one of their clients. No account is too small. Call Payroll Service Solutions today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for a no-obligation review of your payroll needs. That number again is 1-866-PAYEASY. Payroll Service Solutions.
A flawless occasion begins at the Capitol Grill. From the moment you step into the Capitol Grill, located in the heart of Center City, the experience is one of comfortable elegance. Whether you're looking to host a private affair, a perfect lunch stop, or dinner destination, start your occasion at the Capitol Grill today. Visit thecapitolgrill.com or call 215-545-9588. That's 215-545-9588 for the Capitol Grill, Center City.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and former Flyer Brad Marsh.
Thank you very much, Matt Miro. Matt will be at the Game 4 of the World Series tonight with his wife Rachel. Looking forward to that, I'm sure, as the rest of the Delaware Valley is. Meanwhile, the Flyers are up in Toronto. Our question that we asked before the break, thank you very much, Jim, the waiter here at Chickies and Pete's. It couldn't be nicer. Give me my water. It's a beautiful Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill. Come down here, come to the show, have a bite, enjoy the games, and it's a terrific place. Justin Braun played his 800th game last night for the Flyers. He'll play his 801st tonight, which is a question I have for Brad to start with. Flyers have lost the back end of the back-to-back games twice this year already. It's got to be tough. Baseball is a sport that's predicated on back-to-back. You have a different pitcher every night. Doesn't have the physicality of hockey, obviously. Hockey, basketball, you're going to have a bunch of back-to-backs during the season. How much of an advantage is it, Brad? Of course, the Flyers are traveling to Toronto to travel and play back-to-back. What does that mean to a player?
Well, I don't know who puts all the emphasis on back-to-back games, but I think it's overstated or overblown. We used to, you play back-to-back games since you were a kid, playing minor hockey and then junior hockey, and some of the guys that played college, you know, they'll always play Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so I don't know what the heck that noise is. Sounds like a blender's going.
It does.
I'll have one, please. But anyhow, these guys are in such good shape now. And their diet and their nutrition is far superior than it was when we played Orest. And so I don't quite understand it's talk all the time, and I don't know if it's media talk, hyping it up for an excuse or a reason, but I don't get it.
I don't get it at all. Every team has back-to-backs.
Yep.
So if you're going to start using that as an excuse, you're not going anywhere. You know, it's back-to-back, so what? You should be anxious and just ready to go play at all times. There's only two things you got to do when you're a hockey player. Go to practice and play the game. There's nothing else to do.
It's a great attitude.
So what's your hurry?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, the attitude, people ask, what about the 4-day layoff in the World Series? What about back-to-back? What about traveling to Toronto or Manitoba or whatever? To me, if I'm a coach, I'm going to say, guys, put your blinkers on. Just look straight ahead, tunnel vision. Whatever the coincidences are what they are. Don't let them bother you and just play. And then that's what you guys did, I think, right?
I don't know if you heard Bryce Harper's talk after they won the National League. And I listened to what he had to say. He said, the people in Philadelphia, we appreciate them so much. I don't want to hear from anybody, oh, I got a sore here, or I'm tired, or this. Just go out and play the damn game as hard as you can and quit making excuses.
Yeah, because, Marcy, obviously people have their own problems in life. They don't want to hear about athletes' problems when they have of their own.
Especially when they're making millions.
Yep. And I know you took that to heart. You were a very hard worker. Again, you were a captain in the NHL. You guys both were. It's interesting. The Broad Street Bullies have such lore, such everything to Philadelphia. People wonder everything about them 40, 50 years beyond the date. Orest, one of the questions I got asked, and I kind of give you a little background. I was talking to Craig Simpson one time, who was drafted second in the draft, played with the Penguins, got traded to the Oilers. Craig and I were talking, and I said, what was it like in the Oilers dressing room? He said, well, it was pretty easy. I got a story to tell you. He goes, if you screwed up with the Oilers, here Bob Clark was the captain. And this is where the question comes from, the Broad Street Bullies. He said, you screwed up in Edmonton. You went to the dressing room. You didn't worry about 99. You worried about 11. Mark Messier, who was the assistant captain, but he was really the cop. We all know that Bobby Clark wore the C, and he was a great leader. But you had Bob Kelly, Dave Schultz, Don Selesky. You had a bunch of tough guys on this team. Who was the Mark Messier to Wayne Gretzky, or was Bob Clark, did he do both roles?
No, you know, my first year, and there's games you're playing that you're giving it your all. But sometimes, you know, you're going north and the puck is going south. It just happens to be one of those games. But I remember my first year, and I was sitting there and I look up and there's this guy just staring at me, and I can tell he's telling me, son, pick it up, and that was Barry Ashby.
The late, great Barry Ashby, Brad, who took a puck in the eye, later passed away, obviously. With your teams, who was Barry Ashby, who was Mark Messier?
Well, it's hard to say because we had a young team. We had a ton of leaders on the team, and obviously Dave Poulin was the captain. Myself and Mark were the assistants. But back to Orest's point about players that had worn C's before, we were loaded with players that had leadership in their blood. And we had two Sutter brothers, and I think they're taught leadership when they potty train them or something. Yep. I don't know what it is.
It looked alike too.
Yeah, but and I've said all the time, yes, you have a captain and two assistants, but it takes. You look at the Islanders. I always use them as an example. They could have had 10 captains.
Yep.
And you look at the Broad Street Bullies. Yes, Bobby Clark is Bobby Clark's, but the guys that wore the A, you could have 10 guys wear the A. And same in the Flyers team in the 80s. Davey was the captain. We could have had 10 captains or 10 assistant captains. If you look at any successful team, that's what their dressing room makeup is like, they have leaders.
Yeah, it's an interesting point in dressing room makeup, and people talk about this Flyer team, Orest, and obviously John Tortorella's team off to a start that people are surprised at. A, can they keep it up? And B, more importantly, to the beginning, people talk about injuries. You can ignore whatever you want. You cannot use excuses. Injuries are a fact of life in professional sports, and some teams have more of them than others. This Flyers team, unfortunately, off the get-go, Cam Atkinson out for a while, may not be back for a while, and obviously Cam York in the minor leagues, not an injury, but Ryan Ellis going to miss his second year. But this week, Sean Couturier having the second back procedure. The Flyers aren't the kind of team that can toss talented guys aside and bring up Bob Gretzky when Wayne Gretzky goes out, if you know what I mean. How important is the depth? How frustrating is it to play on a team with injuries? And do you think the Flyers can sustain their start?
Well, I think last question is obviously I think it's going to come all down to Carter Hart. When you're getting outshot as much as they are right now, and Carter Hart, you know, I watched. I flipped over to the game last night and caught the. And I know the Rangers hit 3 posts and all that kind of stuff, but I caught the overtime part, and I remember saying years and years ago that, you know, if you're an average goal scorer, or 20, 30, but not a sniper, and you're coming down the boards, and it's 3-on-3. It happens in 5-on-5. Don't start aiming for the corners in the net if you're an average goal scorer. Hit the middle of the net. That way you might hit the corner. What happened last night?
Or get a rebound.
What happened last night? Hayes, I think, came down, shot. Puck went all the way around the boards. I think that went to that Zinabad or whatever. Now our defenseman's pinching. You got two guys caught. He flips it to Kreider. It's wide open. And that was all created by missing the net. You can't miss the net when you only have 3-on-3.
One of the finer points of hockey, Brad Marsh, and I think that was very well described. How much hockey is a sport that a lot of Americans didn't grow up with. Obviously, you talked to somebody about whether Lance McCullers was tipping his pitches last night, whether the Eagles should run the ball or throw the ball. Basketball, obviously a million here. How much do you think Americans need to be educated growing up on the finer points of hockey to see what Orest Kindrachuk saw last night? How do you think America's doing with that?
I think the U.S. hockey program is tremendous. Just look at the number of players that are in the league. And it's the growth right through the United States has just been unbelievable, not only in men's hockey but women's hockey. Just look at the success that the women's program has had. Now they've done an incredible job. USA Hockey's done an incredible job, a tremendous job building the sport at the grassroots level. And once again, you go back to the Flyers and go back to the owner, Mr. Snyder. He was one of the first NHL owners to build hockey rinks. Like, how do you build hockey at the grassroots level? They need access to ice. He built the skate zones. And now if you look at a lot of these hockey, NHL hockey cities in the South, and they've got hockey rinks. They've built hockey rinks. They can get to the rink. Who's the guy in Toronto?
Austin Matthews.
Yep, from Phoenix.
He's from Phoenix.
Yep.
Like, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
Shane Gossesberg, he's from Florida.
Yep. Plays for
Like
Phoenix.
the U.S. hockey program is strong, and USA Hockey has done a tremendous job growing the sport.
When we come back, we talk to Brad about something every show that he does. It's the Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are 3-5, off to a rough start. That's not the Warriors we're talking about. We're talking about Brad Marsh's Warriors, the wounded veterans that he coaches so selflessly, and we're going to talk about that with him, get to much of this stuff with Orest Kindrachuk about today's Flyers and where they're going. So much to talk about on the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross from Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill. We got one more segment. We're looking forward to it. Starts after this.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie and Pete's. Dine in for these amazing plus limited time fall specials, including bomb pork belly tacos and the garlic truffle burger. Wash it down with our pear elderflower mule or apple cider old fashioned. Chickies and Pete's.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A flawless occasion begins at the Capitol Grill. From the moment you step into the Capitol Grill, located in the heart of Center City, the experience is one of comfortable elegance. Whether you're looking to host a private affair, a perfect lunch stop, or dinner destination, start your occasion at the Capitol Grill today. Visit thecapitolgrill.com or call 215-545-9588. That's 215-545-9588 for the Capitol Grill, Center City.
Payroll Service Solutions was established in 2001 to cater to the payroll needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Payroll Service Solutions offers unparalleled customer service while they deliver a complete and accurate payroll. When calling Payroll Service Solutions, you will never be put into a voicemail or go through a series of prompts to get to a person. All customer service representatives are extensively trained to handle all of your payroll needs, therefore saving you time. They value each and every one of their clients. No account is too small. Call Payroll Service Solutions today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for a no-obligation review of your payroll needs. That number again is 1-866-PAYEASY. Payroll Service Solutions.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and former Flyer Brad Marsh.
And our final segment, we're enjoying our first time with Orest Kindrachuk, great guest, great co-host Brad Marsh here at Chickies and Pete's in Bluebell. Seeing my first producer at WIP, Mr. Kevin Nagandi on Sports Center, all kinds of TVs. It's a great, great place to watch ball games and have a great time, great atmosphere. Come to Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill. You might run into a Warrior. Steph Curry? No, not that. But the hockey team that Brad Marsh coaches. Brad, you do an incredible job with these wounded veterans, and we always check in with you every show you do. What's going on with the Warriors right now?
Well, we just got back from Troy, Michigan, where the national championships were, the Warrior Classic, and we hosted it here last year, and so it's just great. So right now, well, I shouldn't say right now, at the tournament this weekend, there was 38 teams.
Wow.
There's 38 Warrior programs for disabled veterans throughout the United States.
How many NHL teams?
I'm sorry?
How many NHL teams were they affiliated with, or are they just independent?
Well, yeah, they're all independent. Some have a loose affiliation with an NHL team. There's nobody that really has the affiliation that the Warriors, the Flyers Warriors has with the alumni and, of course, with the Flyers. But anyhow, we went to the championship. We went with 4 teams this year, and we won one championship. We lost in the finals in another championship. We lost in the semifinals with another team, and then one of our team, our Tier 3 team, they didn't get out of the round robin. But it was a great weekend, and as I always says, yes, it's nice to win, but it was a great weekend for our program just from a team camaraderie standpoint. A lot of wives came, so we had a lot of time to spend together, and it was just a wonderful weekend.
And God bless the work you're doing, Brad. It's incredible with the Warriors. I've talked to some of them. You lead them selflessly, and keep rocking, my man. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
Yep, Orest Kindrachuk does a lot of wonderful things too, but so does his son. We reproduce in this world. I haven't, but Orest has. Your son is in broadcasting. I know you're very proud of him, the smile coming across your face. Tell us about your son, anything you'd like to, and I think you had another point to share with us based on something earlier. So time's yours, as Andy Reid would say.
Well, yeah, he's been in the radio business 15 years, and he was with Sirius Radio, but he left there only because he came to me and says, Dad, I can't live in Los Angeles. Really? But he has a podcast that he started a couple years ago, and it's called, ironically, My Dad Used to Play Hockey.
Really?
And he's probably interviewed over 45 people, including guys like Glenn Sather, Brian Trottier, Grant Fuhrer, and most of the Broad Street Bully guys, and just a lot of Eric, John, but an interesting one was Glenn Sather. That was
Slats.
Slats. That was pretty interesting. But Dave Poulin, so he's done a lot. I think is next. He's going to do Zoom with Doc Emmerich, and so he's really got the guys I want him to get on is like Jerry Cheevers, former goalie.
Yep.
He's Zoomed Terry O'Reilly.
Well, listen, my dad's 92. I love him to death. Obviously, every father wants to see his son do well. Every father wants to promote his son. With that in mind, how can we get this podcast?
It's on almost all social media. It's just put in, My Dad Used to Play Hockey. It's on, I am not on social media, so I don't know all that. It's on Facebook. It's on everything. TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff. So it's My Dad Used to Play Hockey. That's it.
All the new stuff, the new social media. Any one of your 4 kids do something with My Dad Used to Play Hockey? Because theirs did too.
No, I'm very fortunate. I have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. 3 live in Canada, and 1 lives around the corner from me, and they're all successful, have great jobs, and 3 of the 4 are married, and they have great partners, and I got we have 7 grandchildren, so everything's all good.
All good. And Orest, you said earlier that we kind of glossed over a point that you wanted to make about fighting in the NHL. Time's yours again.
Well, I think, obviously the fighting isn't there, but if I was a scout, there's a couple things that I would probably look at, and one is I'd want to go see a player when they're winning 8-0, and I want to go see a player when they're losing 8-0. I think that's very important. And another thing I think that the Flyers really haven't had over the years here is, it's very easy to hit people. It's not hard to hit people, but it's more difficult to take a hit to make a play.
Sure.
And if you see so many players get rid of the puck before they take a hit, and there's only about 3 things that can happen when you hang on to the puck. You beat the guy, he takes it from you, or you might draw a penalty.
Well, our friend hits you.
Or it might bring another player over, which exposes another player that's open. So it's the guys, I think, that are willing to take a hit to make a play. Those teams are usually the teams that end up in the semis and the finals. And I'm being frank, I haven't seen players here do that.
Well, they got to do it. I mean, the guy to my right, Brad Marsh, is a guy that did that all the time. You must have loved watching him play. How important a part of the game was that, Brad, to not be afraid to take a shot?
Well, to take a hit, that's been with hockey all the time, because you learn a player's true colors when he does not take the hit, and you refer to him quite often as a chicken bleep. You know what I'm saying? And that's where your scouts come in, like your bird dog scouts. And, I know a lot of times it's easy to go look at the star who's going to be the number 1 draft pick. Well, anybody can look at a junior game or a college game and say, that kid's going to be a number 1 pick. And but it's the players you get in the rounds 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Those are the players that Orest is referring to, that play in the dirty areas. They get their nose dirty, and their sweaters. Of course, it's different now because the jerseys are collector's items, so they change the jerseys all the time. But
let me interrupt you for 1 second. We only got a couple minutes. Who on the Flyers personifies that to you? What Flyers? Orest said there's not a lot of Flyers to personify that to him. Anybody like a Scotty Lawton? Anybody living increments of this particular code, in your opinion?
Well, Scotty's a perfect example because he plays like a 185-foot game, and he's always making it happen. He's making it happen on the penalty kill. Scotty's a perfect example of that, and you don't have to be the tough guy to take a hit to make a play. They come in all shapes and sizes, and I think with Torts we're going to be turning that page where we're going to have everybody taking a hit, or guess what? They'll end up sitting on the bench like 2 of our star players did a couple games ago. Yeah,
Kevin Hayes and Travis Konechny weren't playing well. Torts doesn't care if you have 12 goals that game. You have 12 goals in the first period, you take the second period off, you may not be playing the third period. That's an accountability that I love, and I think you probably do too, Orest.
Well, I do, and to me that's how games are won and lost, in the trenches, and you can do all the figure skating you want in center ice, but you still if the game still says you got to come to the net.
No triple axles?
The ultimate embarrassment would be, I don't care how much money you make, send him to the minors, and if he goes through waivers, great, you got rid of a contract. But if he's riding a bus, would you rather ride the bus or fly on a plane?
Well, that's an interesting comment, Brad, because Torts has said there are going to be guys by the middle of this first year that are moved, maybe waived, traded. Part of this first year, first 40 games, whatever it is to find out who can play his systems, who wants to play his systems, and who won't. So this is a very important time for every Flyer, no matter your talent level, right?
100%. They're playing for ice time, and that's the one thing that the coach can still hold over the modern day athlete, the professional athlete, not just in hockey, is because they can't send them down because the no trade, the no movement, and all those clauses that they have, but they can sit their butt on the end of the bench or sit their butt up in the press box, and that motivates players when you take away their playing time.
All right, that'll be a great way to end it tonight. Get motivated. Flyers, good luck in Toronto tonight. Tough place. Austin Matthews in the bunch. Flyers going for the win of the back-to-back. Obviously, the Phillies in the World Series. Good luck to the Phils tonight. Good luck to the Eagles tomorrow night. Sixers play at home. Union in the MLS Championship. It's a sports smorgasbord, and it's here at Chickies and Pete's and Drexel Hill, where you can come and watch all of it with a lot of people eating a lot of good food, a lot of polite servers, and you'll have a great time. Orest, thank you so much for being here. It's been a treat to have you on, and do it again sometime. Now you go to California for the winter. Have a safe time and enjoy yourself.
Right, it was my pleasure being here, and I just wanted to say also on top of what you said about Brad, commend him for the Warriors. I think that is outstanding.
It really is, Brad, and we'll talk to you about it in 2 weeks, and when Joe Watson will be our guest, he switched from tonight so nicely. Thanks for being here, and see you soon. This has been the Independence Blue Cross on the Ice from Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill. Brianna O'Neill produced this fine program. The great Gus Barber helped her out, and Keith Noonan back at the station. For Brad Marsh and Orest Kindrachuk, I'm Paul Jolovitz. Go Eagles, go Phillies, go Flyers, go Sixers, go Union, go Philadelphia. Enjoy, everybody.